Excellent. Yeah, good.
Okay. I see him, but I can't hear him. Okay, bye.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
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 Good evening.
We're starting in 4 minutes. Thank you all for coming. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. So I'm also recording this meeting so that we'll upload it to our website. And if people aren't able to come tonight, they can go to it there. I tried to send it to Facebook, but it would have meant the Facebook people who own our page would be hosting it. And I have a few different rights on this medium than they do. So I think it'll work this way. How is everyone's so far?
Good. You?
Kind of stressed.
Oh, I can imagine. In what, 2 weeks, we'll be back in school. It'll be a different experience, but we'll be back.
Yeah, I have to. My school goes back on Wednesday.
Oh, wow. Where is that?
I teach at Pinnacle in Stamford.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So, not with kids,
Got it. Oh, that's right. Yes.
but yeah.
I work for the Head Start program, and we've been running the program with 4 classrooms for 5 weeks already.
Oh, you already been doing it for 5 weeks.
Yes,
Oh, how is that going?
it's been great. We only have 10 kids in each room, and it's been great.
Okay. Great. I was expecting 1,000 people.
Well, the middle school ones are just ending, so
Oh,
if they have a middle school child, you know,
right, right.
because I just got out of Nathan Hales, so this is my 3rd one today.
Oh, wow.
My 4th.
Fun times.
You're fourth. Which schools?
Well, I'm on the special ed.
Oh, yeah, that I can't hear anybody.
I heard someone talking, then they left.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi.
So when I start in 1 minute, I'm probably going to mute everybody just so
Why
that
can't I do this?
we get through it, and then we'll have questions at the end. Oh, here we go.
Why can't I do so like I can't, the thing's working. Oh.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Reginald Roberts, principal of Norwalk High School. Thank you very much for tuning into our town hall. And just a reminder, I've muted everybody, but you can unmute yourself at the end when we have questions and answers. I have 4 of our assistant principals on with me tonight. I've got Dr. Moore, I've got Dr. Sullivan, we have Mr. Singleton, and we also have Ms. Sweeters. And so they're going to be moderating the chat room. So as questions come to your mind and as you think of things that I'm talking about, feel free to put your questions in the chat, and they're going to be moderating the chat and answering them as they can. So this initial presentation is probably going to be about 15, 20 minutes. And then we're going to revisit the questions that you may have asked, and I'll try to clarify anything that perhaps wasn't clear. So this is our Bears, which was actually designed by one of our parents, Mr. Mapes, Rick Mapes, a wonderful parent, who designed that for us about 4 or 5 years ago. And this is our reopening plan that we've been working on for quite a while. And the topics tonight will include face masks, arrivals and dismissals, what to do, how you get to school and what to do once you get here, what we put in place for social distancing, how you eat breakfast, where you eat breakfast, how students will eat lunch and where they will eat lunch, what we're doing to make sure the school is clean at all times, what the health protocols are, because we have some new things that we're putting in place, devices that we're going to use this year, sports, I have an update on that, and also I have information on the hybrid schedules and also the remote schedules. All right, at the very end, I also have listed again our AP's numbers, and they are by house and by grade. So for example, our freshman administrator is Mr. Singleton, our sophomore administrator is Ms. Sweeters, our junior administrator is Dr. Moore, and our senior administrator in terms of students is Dr. Sullivan. So anytime you have specific questions about your child, depending on the grade, that is the person you contact. Okay, all right, so let's just start right in. The biggest questions are, how will school be different than it was in the past? What are we doing to keep Norwalk High School safe? And what are your responsibilities and what are students' responsibilities themselves? Also, we do have another school inside Norwalk High, which is P-Tech. Ms. Amaker is doing a presentation simultaneously. So I'm specifically focusing on what we're doing as Norwalk High students, but some, of course, of the protocols will apply to both schools. All right, face masks. So the bottom line is that everyone in school has to wear a mask. So when students arrive at the bus stop, they need to have on a mask. When they are sitting on the bus, they need to wear a mask. And when they get to school, they also need to be presented at a screening table, and they have to have on a mask. That includes students as well as staff. So I will have one on, all the office staff will be wearing one, or a face covering, a shield. Custodians, cafeteria workers, paraprofessionals, security guards, everybody in the building will have on a face covering or a mask of some sort. Now, there is a mask exemption. Some people have asked about that, and that is something that's only available if you have medical documentation from a medical professional. But that is not something that you can decide, I just don't want to wear my mask today, and so I won't. That's not really what that's about. The basic rule is that at all times, students will have on masks. The thing that I want to talk about next is dismissal and arrival. So there is a section on Strawberry Hill. And I know a lot of you know about it because people used to make an illegal U-turn there for a long time, but there's a bus lane on Strawberry Hill, and students get out of that lane and they walk into the bus door, really, inside the building. Well, that is going to be the same entrance, but there's another entrance on that side. It's going to be the second floor E-house entrance. So there'll be two entrances, and these will be directed by security guards. So students will be called by bus. So for example, let's say there are 10 buses in the bus lane. The security guard is going to call the first 3 buses, and those students will get out, and some will be directed towards the regular entrance, and some will be directed towards the E-house second floor. Now, P-Tech is also going to be getting off those same buses, but they're going to be going to another door through the front field. In terms of, and we're doing it in 3s. So for example, if bus 441, 452, and 580 are the first 3 buses, then the security guard will call those 3 buses and students will get out and students will come through those doors. Parent drop-off will be the same. If you are a Norwalk High School parent and you are coming to Norwalk High, you come to the front. There's always been a security guard directing traffic, and students will come in there. If you are driving, you are a Norwalk High School student and you are 16, 17, and you drive, there is a lower parking lot. We've numbered the lots this summer, and you'll come in through the S-wing doors. Again, it's different for P-Tech. P-Tech students who drive will come in through the pool doors, and P-Tech parents who drive their students will come in through a separate entrance as well. So the point of the different locations is so that we are reducing density. We are reducing the number of people in any one space at any one time. So part of our reopening plan, I know there had been some discussions about colors. Are we orange? Are we green? Are we red? So there's really no color anymore. It's just, this is the plan. We are coming back to school and we're reducing the number of students in school, and we are reducing the numbers of students who are in any one space at any one time. So when students do get to the door, there's going to be a table, and at that table there's going to be what we call a screener, who will be either a secretary or a paraprofessional or an administrator like me or someone else, and we will have a sheet that you have already filled out. Now there is possibly going to be an app where you can fill it out in advance and in some way show us on your phone or on your device what your responses are. But the questions are the same questions that we ask at graduation, about fever, about coughs, about sickness, about having traveled outside of Connecticut to some of the places that have a level 3 warning, whether you've quarantined after having been there. And so pretty much, if it's all paper, we're going to provide you with copies of that document, and the parents would have to sign off saying, no, I haven't had symptoms, or my child hasn't. No, we haven't been out of the country. No, we haven't visited a place on the level 3 warning list. No, we haven't had COVID-19 symptoms. And every day when the child comes in, you have to answer no to those questions. Now, if you do not answer no to any of those questions, then you'll be sent to the nurse. And that's a separate protocol, which I'll get into in just a moment. The issue with screening is we are trying to make sure that everyone who comes into the building is answering the questions that are related to COVID-19. So it is possible that you may have had a headache, or you may have had a stomach ache, and you may or may not have been near someone who was positive or who has symptoms or not. I'll get into that later. But in terms of symptoms, we are not doing temperature checks. We are not stopping you at the door with the thermometer and asking you to submit to that. It's pretty much a you fill it out as a parent, or the student fills it out him or herself with your permission, and you are responding in your truth. The school day, as you know, last year was 7:30 to 2:15 for students. This year it's 8:30 start, and the school day actually ends instead of 3:15, it ends at 3. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. But when you get to school, in the past, students would hang out in the lobby, they'd hang out in the hallways, they hang out near the stairwells, they hang out in entryways, they may have breakfast in the cafeteria, they may go to teachers' classrooms. So that isn't going to happen anymore. So when students come in, they are going to go directly to their teacher's classroom, or they're going to go to one of the many spots we have for breakfast, or they are going to go to a series of rooms that will be staffed so that they will be able to sit there, distance, and not congregate. The issue with that is that we can't have more than 25 people in any one space. So if we're going to the auditorium, there won't be any more than 25. If you're going to the gym in the morning, there won't be any more than 25. If you're going to the public resource room, or public forum room, or to the college and career center, or if you're going to a classroom, no more than 14. So any place where you're going to go in the mornings will be a place where the density is limited. It's limited by a number of reasons. We have taken the chairs out of the rooms. So there are only a certain number of chairs in the room, only a certain number of places to sit. At the end of the day, when we dismiss, in the past, the bell would ring and students would get up at 2:15 and they would go home. They would go through whatever door they could find. They'd stay after school. They would see a teacher. They would go to sports. They would go to band. They would go to Carver. They might stay after just with their friends. That too is not going to happen. So in the future, I or someone in the office will literally call students by bus, like we used to do in elementary school. So I will say bus 415 is here. And if you are on that bus, then you would leave. I will probably do walkers first and then dismiss students. So we're really stopping the school day about 15 to 20 minutes before the day actually ends, to give you time, students time, to come from wherever they are based on their bus and to get on their bus. It's something very common in the elementary and middle schools, but it's not something we've really done in high school. But there are two reasons for this. One is that we are only limiting the people in the hallways to the people who are actually on that bus or the people who are actually walking. You will be going to the bus lane, so at some point there'll be more than 5 or 10 students getting onto a bus, but in terms of being dismissed, you'll be dismissed by bus. And you, of course, go through whatever classroom is nearest to your door, your exit door. As you know, North High has 3 floors, but the exit and entrance doors are really on the 2nd floor, except for
Why I can't hear, I don't know.
except for the cafeteria. Let's see here. All right, transportation. In the past, transportation has always been based on where you live. I know we have a lot of students who walk, some who live just on the line between walking and taking the bus. And the interesting thing to note is that you have an 80% capacity rule, so that the bus can be 80% full. And then again, students will wear their face masks on the bus. They will wear it when they're waiting. They wear it when they're exiting. They wear it when they come into the building, and they will wear them all day. Just so you know, we have gotten all your responses. I know some of you have chosen different models. There's a hybrid model, and then there's a remote model. So I'll explain that in just a minute, but the hybrid model means that you're in school 2 days and you're at home 2 days. That's really it. 2 days in, 2 days out. 2 days in, 2 days out. If you're in the remote model, you don't ever come physically to Norwalk High. You have chosen to stay at home and to have your instruction remotely at all times. So far, we have about 540 parents who'll be elected for a remote-only experience. So Norwalk High has about 1,500 students, and P-Tech has about 400. And so of that total number, about 500, as I was mentioning, 540, have chosen for a remote-only experience. And so out of that, we have reduced those groups into 2. So we're functioning at 50% capacity. So we've reduced that even further to 14 students in any one room. So it doesn't matter what class you're taking, whether it's chemistry or biology or English 9 or physics or psychology. If your class is 26 people, only 14 will be in any room at any one time. And so we've distanced the desks so that they're 6 feet apart, so that if you are 6 feet this way, you're 6 feet on the right, you're 6 feet behind, and that is the way that the desks have been arranged. Hallways now are one directional. So in the past, of course, as you left the classroom, you might go left, you might go right, depending on where you needed to go. But in this model, the hallways are one directional, and so are the stairwells. We've noted some stairwells as this is an up stairwell, this is a down stairwell. So really at any one moment, there won't be more than 600 students at Norwalk High, including P-Tech, at any one time. We've also included some signs. These are some sample signs that we will have in the hallways showing you this is the wrong way. This is an up stairwell. This is a down stairwell, or this is one way in terms of direction. So as you know, students will always want to go a different direction. So it's up to us as security and as teachers and as administrators to sort of get everyone in the idea, in the process, in the habit of going one way to get to the next place. Lockers, there won't be any lockers used this year. Actually, outside of each classroom, I was going to have dots on the floor that were 6 feet apart. So if you happen to be waiting at a classroom for the class to start, you'd know where to stand. But I'm thinking now of putting a dot on a locker and then putting another dot on another locker 6 feet behind it, and then 6 feet behind that one, so that even though you can't use the actual locker, you'll know where to stand. In terms of transitions, I have a quite elaborate schedule of which houses leave at what time. So for example, in the past, the bell would ring, people would get up, the halls would be crowded, and you go wherever you wanted to go. In this method, someone is literally calling over the intercom. A house is now switching with S house, or B house is now switching with B house, or E house is now switching with A house, which means that there won't be any more than those two houses. And for those of you who don't know, Norwalk High is basically 4 houses, A, B, D, E, and the S wing. That's our science wing. And so we have a system that I'll be calling over the intercom, telling students when they can pass from class to class. So before, passing was 4 minutes or 5 minutes. Now we've increased that to 10 minutes to give students time to get from where they're going, from where they are to where they're going. And also because students will be going places where there will be kids in those rooms waiting for my call, that's why I put dots on the floor or on the locker. The other thing is that we are also not allowing visitors. That includes parents, that includes families. If you have to come to the school for any reason, security will basically meet you at the door to assess whatever your need might be. And that includes people who have IEP meetings. You're going to have those virtually, as you have been doing over the last few months, or over the phone, as you've been doing over the last few months. In terms of disinfectants and cleanings, we actually had summer school at Norwalk High this summer, and so we became very familiar with how to clean and how to make sure that we were checking that we had cleaned. So next to every bathroom or restroom is a clipboard, and on the clipboard it notes the time and who cleaned it and what they cleaned. And so you can see at every hour who cleaned the restroom and was it clean? Are there paper towels? Are the soap dispensers full? And is it in suitable condition? Speaking of restrooms, you can only use every other stall. So for example, let's say there are 3 stalls in the boys' restroom. You can use the first one and the third one, and the second one has been blocked off. Let's say there are 3 sinks. The middle sink has been disabled. There are no urinals anymore in the boys' restrooms. And in some of the girls' restrooms, there are maybe 5 or 6 stalls. Again, you're using every other stall. So the number of students who are in the restroom is limited to the number of available stalls. And that will be monitored by teachers who are sitting and doing hall duty. And students themselves will sign in on the sheet of paper next to the restroom that they're going into the restroom at that time. In terms of breakfast and lunch, the cafeteria is no longer a space for eating. There are going to be mobile food stations around the building. And these mobile stations are going to have prepackaged, sealed meals, and students will eat really in the space in their house. So for example, let's say that your class is in A house and your lunch is first lunch. You will go to the mobile station in A house and you have a choice of eating in several areas, outdoor areas, the first floor, the second floor, the third floor in A house. As I've written here, the student classroom during lunchtime is A house. You can choose to eat in the dining areas designated in A house only. We're not using the caf for lunch anymore. We're trying to distance students as much as possible so that there is at least 6 feet, even when you're eating at these spaces. There are going to be 3 waves, as there had been in the past, and we're trying to limit the number of people in any one wave. And so in the past, band would have third wave, or PE Health might have third wave, or people in P-Tech might have third wave because they may go to college courses and they don't want to miss their class. Again, if you are remote only, that means that you aren't coming to school for instruction, but there will be a site for you to get your food, just like there was during COVID in March, April, and May. In terms of restrooms, we're going to keep all the restrooms open at all times. You can only use the restroom on the floor of your classroom. You'll sign in. There's a clipboard there will be a clipboard next to every restroom. And on the clipboard, you just literally sign in. And that will be important for contact tracing. And I'll talk a bit about that in a moment. And then again, we used to have agenda books. There are no agenda books this year. You don't have to take it out and give it to someone to sign and someone else to sign. If you want to go to a restroom, or if you have to go to a teacher's classroom, the teacher will write a physical pass on a sheet of paper by color, by quarter. And then when you come back, you throw it away. In terms of cleaning protocols, the custodians are going to be doing deep cleaning every single day, sanitizing every room once a day, and every restroom at least twice. And I say at least twice. I gave a sample here of the clipboard on the wall. So they're going to be going through multiple times a day, making sure that there is soap in the dispenser, making sure there are paper towels, making sure that the restrooms themselves are actually clean. Every room in the building will have hand sanitizer on the wall, and every room will also have a HEPA filter, every classroom in it. In terms of health monitoring, this is a very important point. If you are going to be a student at Norwalk High, you have to have a current physical on file. And as of last week, there were about 200 students whose health forms we don't have. So if we don't have your health form, you can't do remote or hybrid. So we'll be sending you reminders, but if your health form is not current, you cannot come to school physically, and you cannot participate in the remote experience either. There are about 200 families, as I mentioned, who have that, are in that predicament. And so we'll be reaching out to you just to remind you, because you might have forgotten or you might not know. Speaking of monitoring and isolation rooms, so an isolation room is a place for people who, during the school day, experience COVID-like symptoms. And so it has to be a space that has a restroom or access to a restroom. And the people in that space would have full gear, masks, gloves, gowns, if necessary, face masks, shields. And that is where you'll be, for example, if you come to school and on your screener sheet, you say, I'm actually having symptoms. And if we deem that those symptoms are COVID-19 symptoms, you'll be sent straight to the nurse. And the nurse will talk to you and will actually call your parent. And in those cases where you're experiencing symptoms, you'll actually go home. There are actually 3 categories when it comes to symptoms and exposure. And here are the 3 categories. It's students who say, I've not been in contact, I have symptoms, but I haven't been in contact that I know of with someone who's diagnosed. Or I have symptoms and I have been in contact with someone who's diagnosed. Or I don't have any symptoms at all, but I know that I've been in contact with someone who's been diagnosed. And so the simple answer is, if you are having symptoms and you're at home, you should stay at home. You should seek medical attention. And there are really two things. You could either get a test and we test it negative, or you can get a test and test positive. In which case, we'd ask you to remain at home and not come back until a health professional clears you for at least 10 days. And if you're a person, you have symptoms and you know you've been in contact with someone who is COVID-19 positive, again, depending on where you are, if you're at home, stay at home, get tested. If you get tested and you're negative, then you come back with a doctor's note after your symptoms have stopped. And if you have no symptoms at all, but you know you've been in contact with someone who has tested positive for COVID-19, then you would also self-quarantine for 14 days. And I have a chart that I don't have up here, but I'll send it to you. It really goes through each case. If I'm at home when this happens, if I'm at school when it happens, and how do I share the information? Who do I tell? So if you're at home, you should reach out to me or reach out to your child's administrator. If you're at school, you should reach out to your teacher, will then direct you to the nurse, and the nurse will then make the assessment. So in terms of what happens when you are positive or when you tell us that you tested positive for COVID-19, we then have a protocol. We contact the school nurse, we contact the director of nursing, the nurse's director contacts the health department. Then we start calling you. We ask where you've been, if you've been out of the country, if you've been in an area that's a level 3 area, and then we start contact tracing if you're positive. So what classes have you been in, and with whom, and where have you been? In terms of closures, that is a decision that is made by the superintendent on a case-by-case basis, and it's made in consultation with the health director and also with the medical director in Norwalk. So, in terms of how you access content, I sent an email last week saying that we're going to be giving new laptops to all students this week, starting tomorrow. Seniors come in, and then juniors on Wednesday, and then sophomores, and then freshmen. So I've divided by alphabet, A through L, 9 through 11, M through Z, 11 to 2. So if you already have a Chromebook and you did not return it already, you should bring that Chromebook back to us, and we will give you a new laptop. If you already returned it and you just want your new laptop, you can come and get your new laptop. Now, what if you have a computer at home and you don't want the new laptop? We still have one for you anyway, so that you can have access in the way that we would like you to have access. In terms of teachers, they all have new laptops as well. And the district has a plan to make sure that all families have reliable Wi-Fi, which was an issue we know in the spring. One of the other issues that we used to have students take their phones and put them in these door holders. And so that during the classroom, students really weren't fidgeting with their phones. So we're not taking phones this year. Your phone is your phone, and you'll keep it on your person at all times. One of the other questions people have asked is sports. We've done a lot of talk with Mr. Marchetti, who happens to be the president of CIAC. And he's had individual conversations with his fall coaches. Fall coaches have been in contact with their teams. And basically, it's an ongoing discussion. So I couldn't really tell you now what the final decision is on any sport. All I can say is that it's an ongoing discussion. And as we know, we'll let you know. Now, this is the part that a lot of people have asked. What are my schedules? So it's the AABB schedule, which basically means there's one group called A and another group called B. And so the A group, and let me share this screen with you so you can see this one. This might make it easier for you to see. Okay. Okay, so we have the month of September. So let's say on the first day of September is a Tuesday, the A group comes in. The next day is Wednesday, the A group comes in again. So what classes are you gonna have on your first A day? Your first 4 classes. And what classes are you gonna have on the next A day? Your next set of 4 classes. Every student has 8 classes, and so you're going to have your all 8 classes in that 2-day rotation. And then on the Thursday, the 3rd, is a B day in terms of the group. The letter doesn't refer to the class you're taking. It refers to the group that comes in. So the next group is your big group, and they're in person for 2 days. Then on the 7th, we have no school, and the A group comes again for 2 days, and then the B group comes again. So as you can see from the schedule, the A group comes in twice a week, and the B group comes in twice a week for the first 3 weeks of school. Actually, for the first 4 weeks of school. So it's just a constant rotation, 2 days in, 2 days out, 2 days in, 2 days out. So when you are in, you're physically in front of the teacher, receiving your instruction as you would normally, no more than 14 students. And when you're out, you are watching online in the same way we did in the spring. So you'll have access to Google Classroom, or you'll have access to whatever online materials the teacher is teaching. The teacher actually has a laptop pointed to him or her, and he is teaching both groups simultaneously. It could be a combination of individual work, interactive work. We can group, like I could put you in groups now and have some of you in the group talking to others. So there could be students in the classroom in a group with someone online, having a conversation because you both have your laptops. So that's the simplest way I can describe. The schedule is 2 days in, 2 days out. And then of course, if you're a remote student, you don't come to school at all because you've chosen that. And all of your instruction will be completely online. Okay, let's go back to this screen. All right, we did cohorts basically by alphabet. So we took that 900 group of students and we divided them into two by alphabet. We tried to make sure that students who are from the same families are on the same day, unless you asked us not to. I think 2 weeks ago, we still hadn't heard from about 200 parents. So we are assuming that if you have not responded and we've reached out to you and we've emailed and we've called several times, that you're going to be hybrid. So we've made a space for you if you have not responded. That is a very few, very small number. Some have asked, can I switch back and forth? Can I be hybrid, then go remote? Can I start remote and then go hybrid? The answer is yes. You can go from one model to the next. If you start hybrid and you decide I would like to have a remote only experience, that is a little bit easier to do than if you were to start remote and later opt for a hybrid. You can still do it, but it would give us a little time for the remote to in-school. The in-school to remote is just very simple. The remote to in-school is a bit more complicated. Can you choose a different cohort? In other words, if I'm in the A group and my best friend is in the B group, can I switch back and forth? The simple answer to that is no. We have cohort students so that we know what classes you take. And we're trying to make sure there are no more than 14 students in any class at any time. Most of them are less than that. And how can you tune in? Well, you'll tune in via your laptop. And this is what the schedule will look like. So the day starts at 8:30. We're gonna open the doors in terms of allowing you to come in about 8:15, maybe a little earlier. We are hoping that it won't take any more than 15, 20 minutes to get everyone inside. And the classes are about 1 hour and 18 minutes each. We're putting 10 minutes in between each of the in-between passing periods, where someone like me is calling students over the intercom. A is going to E, S is going to B, something like that. And then we have lunch. Teachers are entitled to 30-minute duty-free lunch. So lunches at minimum are 30 minutes. And then we have a staggered dismissal at 2:45. So our classes used to be 90 minutes and passing was about 5. And so now classes are about 78 minutes and passing is 10. And again, the purpose of that is so that we can, but when I first got to Norwood High, classes were 47 minutes for years. And so we have increased instructional hours and we've also increased the number of minutes in passing so that you have more time actually not to see each other. So because one of the rules is we want a 50% density in the building, a 50% density in the classroom. And at the high school, it's very hard because any student may be in, let's say, honors English 9, but your next class might be chemistry. And the person next to you might have a biology. And the person next to him might have art. And the person next to him might have Spanish 2. And so no group is going to the exact same class, which is the complicated part about high school. It's much simpler at the elementary levels where the students stay in one room and the teachers rotate. But that's the beauty of high school, I think. You have AP, you have honors, you have college prep. You have decided what you want your children to take and they've decided what they want to take. And they can choose many options. And it's those multiple options that actually make it more difficult to cohort, if you will. I also have a slide I want to show that is, well, this is, let me stop this one. Let me start this one. Okay, this is the slide that was about what do you do when you have symptoms. I'm just going to actually give you this slide because it's a bit complicated to explain. But for the most part, depending on where you are when the symptoms start, and depending on whether you test negative or positive, you either stay home for 14 days or 10 days or until your symptoms and fever have gone, if you had a fever, and if you're not taking fever reducing medication. So this is a handy dandy chart that I'll send to you so that you can see exactly what we're doing at all times. So there's no question about what I should do at any moment. Now let me show you a sample student. We're gonna call him, let's see, we're gonna call him Malik. Okay.
You guys.
Okay, can you see this? This is Malik. Malik has chosen to be an in-person student. So he arrives at, he's a general ed student, which means he does not have an IEP. He arrives at school on his bus. He's wearing his mask on his bus. He comes to school at 8:15. He gets off the bus as he is called by security. He goes into one of two entrances, either the bus entrance or the second floor e-house. He's got his two classes, 8:30 to 11:16. His classes, as I mentioned, are an hour and 18 minutes. There's something called a mask break, which I'll talk about in a moment. Then Malik goes to lunch. He has lunch for 30 minutes in one of the many mobile stations around the building. And then Malik goes to his third block class and his fourth block class. And then at the end of the day, I'm calling, even though the classes are over at 2:45, I don't get to his bus until 3 o'clock, and he goes home when he gets called. And then he might participate in an after-school activity. That really is a club or Carver. And the clubs are only happening when the teacher designates it to happen. So if I am over the ski club, I will say, ski club is on Tuesdays, once a month. If you're here, it's in room 212. And if you're not, you can Zoom in, or you can come in through Google Hangout. And my second slide is my distance learning student. Malik is not in school. He is a remote learner. He gets up, he has breakfast. He logs in at 8:30, just like he would in the spring. He goes to his first block class, his second block class. He has lunch. As I mentioned, that there will be sites. I think Norwalk High was a site in the spring where he can get his food. Then he goes to his third block classes and his fourth block class. And then he actually ends his school day at 2:45. Now, if he does have an after-school activity, the question is, how would he participate? If it's a sport, how would he get here? Or if it's an after-school club, how would he participate? Well, the short answer is, if it's a club, he could participate online as the person could Zoom him in, if you will. But if it's an after-school sport, that's a bit more complicated, depending on if we have sports. So I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure if Mr. Marchetti is on this call or not, but he can speak a bit more to that. Let me take that slide down. And that slide. Let's see. And let's go back to this one. Okay. And it's about 7:37, and I believe that there are lots of questions in the chat. Dr. Sullivan, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Are there particular questions that you might want to address?
I think you touched on some of the parents had the question about the transitioning from the remote to hybrid or vice versa, and I know you referenced that is feasible, but are there any descriptors to go along with that? Are there certain points in time where that will be feasible, or can it happen just sort of arbitrarily?
Okay, so we would like to say that if you're going from an hybrid model to a remote model, it could pretty much happen within a day or so. We just need to update our record so we'll know that you actually are choosing remote versus just not coming to school. If you are remote and you've chosen to come to hybrid, it probably would happen within 10 days. There had been some discussion about mid-quarter, in the quarter, but I think it has to happen pretty much quickly within the time you requested. So coming back in from the remote model will happen pretty much within a 10-day span.
Okay, there's also a question about when will the students, particularly the freshmen, know which cohort they will be in?
Yes, so we did a lot of work last week. Last Tuesday was the day that we needed to hear from all parents to decide what you want. And then we did a lot of calling. One day we called 900 parents to say, we haven't heard from you. And we put everyone in cohorts. And we have a math genius on our staff, Mr. Moffitt, who was able to work very well with the numbers. Now, there are two things that have to happen though. One is you have to make the school half size. Then you have to make each classroom less than 14. Then, if you are a student who has an IEP, or if you are an English learner, you do have the option of coming every day. That is something that we've been discussing, and that actually is the case. If your child receives special education services and you opt for your child to have a hybrid experience, it can actually be every day, not just 2 days on, 2 days off. So then we layered in that level of students to make sure that we're still maintaining that level. So within the next couple of, well, before the first day of school, we will let you know, because you have to know when to come. So we're working on that this week to make sure we have it down pat. And when you turn on your Power School, as a student, you should be able to see what group you're in, whether you're the A group or whether you're the B group. And I'll send out the schedule that I just showed you, so you'll know the times. And so you'll also know which group you're in. So if I'm an A person, I'm coming on Tuesday, I'm coming back on Tuesday. If I'm B, I'm at home Tuesday, and I'm also at home on Wednesday. I've listed the assistant principal's names here and their phone numbers and their extensions and their emails, and mine, of course, as well. So feel free to reach out on any topic and ask questions about anything. We're here to answer your questions and to help you. We're actually in service of you, as you know. Mr. Singleton or Dr. Moore, were there other questions that you were able to field?
Yes, can you please go over what your ideas are for freshman orientation? There seems to be a lot of questions regarding the expectation for our new ninth graders coming in, how they know where to go, so forth and so on, since they are new to the building and not accustomed to our practices.
Yes, well, actually, you're working on that. Mr. Singleton is our freshman administrator, and he is working on what the freshman orientation will look like with Maureen Ireland and Chanel Gardner. They've traditionally run a back-to-school freshman orientation called Link Crew, where seniors and juniors would meet with freshmen over a day in, say, a morning, like next Wednesday. All freshmen would come in, we would go through all these activities, we'd acclimate to the school, you have a tour. That won't happen in a group of 500 freshmen. But actually, Mr. Singleton, I would ask you to follow up on that, because you're over that part of the freshman orientation. But the answer to your question is yes, there will be something for freshmen to introduce them to Norwalk High. It will most likely be virtual, and there might be a time when students can actually tour the building in small groups. But that will be forthcoming, actually from Mr. Singleton. Also, I think Ms. Veronica Linson might be on the line. She's one of our special education administrators. Are you on here somewhere?
I am here.
Is there anything you wanted to talk about in particular as it relates to students with disabilities?
No, I think that you've really covered just about everything. You know, our special ed students are gen ed students first. So certainly we're starting with the building-based rules and regulations and moving on from there. I just ask that if parents have not had the opportunity to fill out surveys, or if they do get a phone call in the next few days from special education department, to please consider whether or not they want the 5 days or the hybrid model. But the special education department will be in touch about those things. I'm here basically just to answer any questions that might come up.
Okay, Ms. Sweeters or Dr. Moore?
I think we have gotten most of the questions. If we didn't, I apologize. There's been a lot we've been trying to keep up with. I think the biggest ones you already went over, the freshman seminar and disinfecting, which you said Bill Hodel will come out with some more information shortly.
Yes, there had been some discussion of whether or not students could physically wipe their own desks or chairs. That hasn't been approved yet. That was one of the initial thoughts. But we only have 5 custodians in the building in the morning, and then 9 after 3. So it would be physically impossible for a custodian to literally wipe every single desk in every single room every period. So it becomes a matter of what do we clean and how often we clean it. There is hand sanitizer for students in every classroom. We do recommend frequent hand washing in the restrooms. We will be cleaning high-touch areas like stairwells and handrails and doorknobs frequently during the day. And as I mentioned, we will be cleaning each restroom, making sure it's open and making sure the sinks are operational and making sure that the toilets are operational. And we'll be making sure there are only 2 people really, or 3, in any restroom at any one time. Is Dr. Moore on the line?
Yes, Reginald, I think parents are concerned about when they're going to know if their child is in A or B. And they are very anxious to see the schedules, and especially in light that the counselors are still resolving conflicts with the schedules. And so you may or may not be able to be in an AP class as you had planned, and that affects the summer work. So there's a lot of conversation about having better grasp on what's going to be happening with their child and the schedule.
So typically you get your schedule on the first day of school. I think only 1 year in the time I've been there have we ever given students their schedule before they left for the year. If you're in an AP class though, those teachers typically reach out to students who will be in the class. And of course we have the reading posted so that you can see what it is you would be taking. So for the most part, the short answer is you find out your actual schedule the first day of school, unless you're in the AP class, in which case you most likely have already heard from your teacher. However, what you and your counselor discuss before the end of the school year is also most likely what you'll be in. Like you mentioned, Dr. Moore, there will be conflicts, and some students might not get into the class that they wanted. And some counselors have been coming in the summer and having conversation with students about that. But Mr. Singleton actually is also our scheduler. So he can speak to when the schedule is going to be open. I believe it's the first day of school. Is that true, Ed?
Yeah, the schedules will be open, available for students on the right prior to the first day of school. So since we'll be beginning on September 1st, I would anticipate the evening of the 31st, so students will know where to go who are attending classes in the building, so they'll know exactly where to go, and those students will know where to log in who will be going remotely.
And when do you anticipate that we'll know what group you're in, A group or B group?
So we're still waiting from some information to come through the specialized services area. So once we're confirmed about the students from specialized learning, where they need to be in terms of remote learning and in terms of hybrid, then we can proceed with that, which should come to us, I would anticipate, sometime this week.
So Reginald, if I am the student, I understand now that I may very well be able to see my schedule in Power School the day before school starts. But for my family who's planning and getting things organized in terms of when I'll be home and when I'm going to be in school, when would my family know if I'm an A or a B?
So I think Ed's saying that after this week, Ed, won't we be able to finalize that this week?
I'm frozen.
Mr. Singleton?
I'm sorry, I was frozen for a second. Can you repeat that?
Yes, so I'm the student and I understand I'm going to get my schedule or have access prior to the first day, maybe 1 or 2 days before on Power School, but my family's trying to plan all the things they need to plan, their work schedules, etc. And they want to know as soon as possible whether I'm an A or whether I'm a B. How soon can parents learn that?
So I think that we can't really disclose that information until, in fact, we hear from the specialized learning department. I would not like to release that information without releasing that as a body and as a community. So as soon as we hear from specialized learning, we would be able to know, because clearly it was pretty much just a complete split that we did, except for some certain instances where we're trying to make sure that certain siblings who might have different last names, or other relatives who might live in the same home with different last names, ended up in the same cohort. So we're still trying to work those nuances out, and we should be hearing from specialized learning at the end of the week. So we should be able to let you know that soon. And we're coordinating that with Brian McMahon so that we can also release all that information at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
So I would say, parents, this week, I think what Ed's referring to is, if you have a child who has an IEP, you can choose an everyday experience. Once we layer in those students for that option, and if you are an EL, language learner.
Why am I freezing?
Let me stop sharing this. Once we layer in those students as well, that should happen this week. And I would say by Monday, I'm setting a target that we would be able to let you know this is your group, your A or your B. And you can see in your schedule, it actually has a little icon that shows you whether you're hybrid or whether you are remote. Okay. So this meeting is actually being recorded, and I'm going to put it up on our website so that if someone didn't have a chance to come to it, they can see it. Or if you want to watch it again, just to have any question that you might have had re-answered, then that will be available to you as well. Are there any last questions that I haven't addressed? I think one question was about music. Is there going to be a music department? There is still going to be a music department, but the band won't be the same as it has been. And the chorus won't be the same as it has been. And so we will be publishing information about what it will look like soon. Someone's asking about a freshman supply list. There really is no supply list per grade. There's an expectation by teacher. So depending on what class you're in, that teacher may say, this is the source we use, this is the text we use, this is the online resource we use, but we really don't mandate a particular notebook style or binder. That's really teacher specific. Okay, I think that is all. If I'm not reading the chat at the end. Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to communicating with you soon.